Is it worth traveling to Greece in the winter? Dan's Endless Destinations here to tell you everything you need to know about visiting Greece in the winter and November. Put questions in the comment section and I'll try to answer. It said it was supposed to be cold in Greece in November, and it was, but it wasn't so bad. The weather is comparable to, say, North Carolina. There was highs of 70s in the south like Athens and Santorini, mid 60s highs pretty much everywhere else, and in the mountains would say highs of 40s and 50s, as cold as in the 30s, and that was November. Best thing to do is bring hand warmers, wear a beanie, and just a light jacket on. I guess the biggest downside of going to Greece in winter be the cold and trying to swim. That takes away some of the fun. However, I did go swimming at the beach. I mean, the water was probably 67 degrees-ish. It was really cold, but still had a good time. Beautiful water, had to go in. Also, there's hot springs there in Thermopylae. The weather website said it would rain 1 in 3 days, but just before we went, I started looking at the weather, and it looked like it was supposed to rain almost every single day, but it didn't. It rained maybe 2 to 3 days out of the whole 2-week trip. I wouldn't say the rain really ruined anything. I mean, it took an hour or two out of our day in Santorini, so that was about it. It can ruin a sunset. Best way to deal with that is bring an umbrella, raincoat, good shoes that's not going to easily get wet. Shouldn't have any problems. Going in winter means weather is mostly overcast. Again, we had sunsets pretty much every day. We didn't have any problems there. One day it did rain in Santorini, and it rained real hard. I mean, it was like the roads became water slides and the water was like inches thick just rolling down the road. Made for interesting driving. Traveling to Greece in wintertime, it's off season, so there'll be less tourists, which means there's usually less crowds, but that's not 100% true. In Athens, it was very busy, even in winter. Very hard to navigate the metro system. Got to be aggressive. We had a stroller trying to get on the metro. That was not easy. They will try to cut around you. If you're slow, it might be hard to get on the metro. The people that are, of course, going to be the friendliest will be the hotel and restaurant staff. Anyone trying to sell you something. Santorini was mostly empty, but sometimes it was hard to find available parking spots. I mean, most of those parking areas are very small to begin with. Walking around in Fira and Oria, there may be just a few other people walking around. That means there's a lot of touristy restaurants that will be closed. The ones that are open are usually the smaller ones that are better. Most of the touristy restaurants and all of the other destinations were open. I mean, there's still people going to pretty much every archaeological site, museum, so those restaurants will still be open. I would say the only places that were busy were Athens. Olympia was pretty busy. Ionia, which is a local destination for their vacation. Because this winter, prices for the hotels were like a third of the price that you would expect in the peak season. Everywhere else, probably a little bit cheaper, but not as, say, Santorini's discount off season. Because I stayed at the downtown areas or close to the destinations, of course, I paid a lot more than stayed off site. We had 5 of us, so that cost extra. If you're just 1 or 2 people, you can really stay cheap. I think off season is the way to go if you don't plan on swimming. I mean, everything is much cheaper, just generally speaking. That, and you don't have to worry about intense sun during the summer. It gets super hot, so it's nice and cool, easy to walk around during winter. It's very nice. In Santorini, I paid about $75 per day to rent a car, whereas the mainland in Greece, I paid about $25 a day to rent a car. Santorini is relatively small, probably drove 40 miles, while on the mainland, made the huge loop around the entire country, drove about 2,070 kilometers in about 9 days. We did a lot of driving. Everywhere you drive, everywhere, there's either a beach or a mountain nearby. I mean, it's just beautiful. So just driving is an experience. During wintertime, I don't think the prices for the restaurants get any cheaper. Best bet, I picked the restaurants before I got to Greece. So I looked through the reviews, made sure that they were really good. I would recommend doing that. There's not really fast food. Finding drive-thrus, I didn't find them. There was like a McDonald's in Santorini, McDonald's in Athens, which we did go to. It took probably longer to go through the drive-thru, get the food, and it even cost too much. Honestly, if you're going to do fast food, go to those bakeries. They have prepared food and they also have meat inside, breading. I mean, there's so many options and it's so cheap. That's the way to go, is the bakeries. That's very Greek. Most of the restaurants that are Greek style, they're grilled meats and salads, and that kind of gets redundant after a while. We kind of got bored, so we try to change it up. They have other stuff. Just like most European countries or really anywhere you travel, if you want US brand foods and snacks and drinks like Coke and chips, you're going to pay premium for it. For some reason, Greek salads at restaurants, they cost 7 to 12 euro, which seems a lot for what you get. And if you go to the grocery store, you can make it for so cheap. I mean, like 3 tomatoes is 80 cents, onion 60 cents, a cucumber was 80 cents, feta cheese block was $2, olive oil and vinegar bottles were like $2, which makes literally twice as much for less than half the price. Every time I went to the grocery store to get water, I looked over and they had the prepared foods and all the locals were buying it up and eating it, and so I assumed it was good, and it was. The other benefit of getting food at a grocery store is bringing it back to your apartment. Most of our hotels, Airbnbs, they all had balconies or they had good views or a place to sit and eat. We can take your time, grab a bottle of wine, which is relatively cheap. Though wine is cheap, the beer is not. Most of the places I went to, they didn't expect a tip, except for the touristy areas, specifically Santorini, mom and pop places. They're definitely better, cheaper, higher quality food. I would recommend it. Research before you go. The cheapest and best on most menus, almost all of them had it, was mixed meat plate. It comes with fries. It's a way to try all their food. Mix a seafood plate, definitely worth trying. Best to only get seafood if near the ocean because you'll get it more fresh. There's much less cars on the road during wintertime. Pretty easy to get around. Parking, not that big of a problem except for those places I listed busy. Driving in Greece was similar to, say, Italy. Everyone's aggressive. If you're in the left lane, you better be a race car. You're going fast. Everyone automatically allows you to pass because it's passing culture. They don't block the speed lane. People will not pass you on the right. They will just honk at you and get right at your tail. So let them around. The people that drive slow, they're very quick to let you go around. They'll drive way into the shoulder. They go out of their way to let you pass. It's just a passing culture. There's a few places that the roads go down to one lane, one person each direction. So careful. Like in the old areas where the town is old and it wasn't prepared for cars. Be careful going around the turns. It can be a little bit sketchy driving through Greece. There's steep roads, especially in like Athens. I remember my Airbnb, I felt like going straight up in the air. Going through the mountains, it was pretty steep up and down. The roads get real thin. There's a lot of places where there's just cliff and straight down, no guardrails. It can be fun. I can't even begin to imagine how crazy it would be during summer to drive and to get around. It gets much, much busier. While driving, there's a lot of tolls. You stop probably every hour or two. All the tolls, say the 9 days I was driving through mainland Greece, probably about $100-ish, somewhere around there. So maybe $10 to $20 a day. Gas was anywhere from $7.50 to $9 a gallon US. Their gas stations will show 1.75 to 210, and that's euros per liter. Still recommend renting a car. I'm taking a bus from Athens to anywhere. Just takes a lot more time, and you end up going backtracking because you keep on going back and forth, back and forth. Having your own car, having the flexibility of making one big loop, much, much better. And honestly, it's not that hard to drive. Just be careful. In November, there's no snow, but expect snow in winter in the mountains. Once it reaches December, January, February, you're required to have chains for your tires when it gets in those conditions. I noticed Google Map was wrong, maybe 5%. It would tell you to go down roads that you definitely do not want to go because it would be sketchy, the road's broken, or there would be a gate that's closed. You would only need about 1 to 200 euros if you're driving, pay the tolls. Other than that, everything's credit card. There was really no places that wouldn't take credit cards. Almost all the destinations we went to were either archaeological, museums. They become very repetitive. How many times can you see at a museum the pottery, statues, jewelry, weapons? They start meshing into each other. So that's the same no matter where you go. What country? Went to Peru and it's about the same. I mean, if that's what you like the history. They seem to not have as many paintings as, say, most of the other places. It was much more statues. I also noticed that most of the statues they had were men and they were naked. I only did Airbnb probably because we had 5 in our group, which makes it really difficult for hotels. I spent a lot of time doing research on where to stay, what to stay, making sure I got the best price. All of the locations that we ended up staying was downtown or near walking distance, or it had a beautiful patio looking down at the beach. We ended up spending a lot of time at our Airbnbs. Don't stay at any place that doesn't have good ratings. I promise you won't be happy. If you're traveling in winter, not all places have heat. You definitely want to look that up because if it gets cold, you're gonna wish you had heat. Make sure the Wi-Fi is good. If you see a lot of people complaining about the Wi-Fi, don't stay there. Usually I get the SIM cards at the airport, but this time I got eSIMs online, which worked. I mean, they were a little bit slow, but when you're traveling through the mountains, which is a lot, you won't have connection to your SIM. Bring good shoes. You will be walking a lot. We averaged from the low 3.5 to the high 8.5 when we're in Santorini. That's including the small kids. One weird thing I noticed is that there was modern music, but it was dubbed in smooth jazz, and that was at a lot of restaurants and grocery stores. Thought that was kind of cool. If you're traveling with small kids to Greece, it's not going to be easy. It's still doable. There's stairs everywhere, so if you have a stroller, it's going to be hard. The roads of the streets, they're not very ADA friendly, so trying to drive stroller down the sidewalk is going to be difficult. Their sidewalks are broken. I had a bad experience with Eurocar. We got there a little early, and they made us wait the whole hour. Car was available. They were saying that it wasn't, but it was because they already had the key in hand. I think they were just being petty. And make sure you get videos. They will get you on stains that's not yours. I had pre-videos. When I got back, they were like, oh, the stain wasn't here. It definitely was. I proved it, but they would have probably charged me hundreds of dollars, so careful. They also try to upcharge me to get me a bigger vehicle because they seen I had a hard time getting all the bags to fit, but we did. They'll nickel and dime you on anything they can. They'll try to get you on the insurance, which I wasn't having because most of these cars, they cover collision for rental cars. Do look into that. They'll save you some money. Most places you go, restaurants, grocery stores, destinations, they mostly have someone who speaks English. I didn't really have any problems communicating. I'm not sure why, but there were some places that were closed. Ancient Corinth, there was nothing available telling me that it would have been closed. Also, ancient Sparta was closed. Also, winter is when roads get under construction. If you're staying at a hotel, you'll hear some. We had a 70-minute complete stop delay going to Lefkada. They were working on the road. We were 1 minute too late to get through. Make sure you bring your converter, 240 volt to 120 volt. Bring multi-plug. We kept water and snacks with us at all times. We brought our backpack everywhere. Make sure that you download Netflix, HBO, whatever music you can download before you go so that you don't have to use up your data. Netflix and HBO that downloaded, they blocked because they didn't have licensing in Greece. Dryers in Greece, they just take 3 to 4 hours. They're very slow. And it's the same thing all of Europe. I never quite understood that. If you're looking to save money, most of the Airbnbs have kitchens and cooking ware. Go buy stuff from the grocery store and bring it home and cook. If you're in the touristy areas, someone approaches you, they're trying to sell you something, walk away. If someone tries to hand you a rose or a bracelet, they can even be very forceful. They're looking for 10 or 20 euros. They're going to try to be ridiculous. They'll even do it to your kids, so keep an eye. One thing neat about Greece, just like most of Europe, everywhere you go, there's a castle. And oh boy, the sun is bright, even during wintertime. If you're wearing black pants, you can feel it burning on your legs. I had sunburn on my face and on my hands, and it was November. Most of the touristy shops, they have this thing called evil eye to protect you, but honestly, those are things that only tourists buy. Another thing you got to look out for is making sure that people charge you what is either on their menu or what you pre-booked or your car rental or excursions. They like to add hidden fees or costs more than what you already agreed to. You got to make sure that the toilet paper goes into the trash bin, not the flush. In Greece, there's ferries that travel even during winter times, but keep in mind the weather may be unpredictable and trying to get to these islands. Hard to do. Sometimes the days will shut. I seen the ocean. It was crazy. I would not want to be on a boat. We did not go on a ferry, not once. We went to Lefkada, which was on a bridge to the island. When we went to Santorini, we flew. Before you go, make sure you map out the route of where you want to go. I would recommend doing a nice big circle around the whole entire country. It's definitely all worth seeing. Look out for my next video, which will be Greece top 10 things to do.